3, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today I wanted to talk about an idea that I came across recently in a movie called Life Itself. And I enjoyed the movie, but it is a pretty odd and somewhat disturbing. But one of the themes throughout the movie is the theme of the unreliable narrator, where the person narrating the story has a point of view that skews the story. So we're not really getting an objective view of what's going on. And it suggests that every story, including life itself, has an unreliable narrator. And the first time I came across that in literature was in Agatha Christie book called The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. And it's certainly the first story I read. I don't know that it's the first time it's ever been done as a literary device, where the narrator of the story, and I'm about to ruin it for you, so just so you know, the narrator of the story turned out to be the murderer. And so the whole time you think the story is being told to you by an objective observer, and you suddenly realize that the whole thing has been being sucked in by an unreliable narrator. Now, I had my first sort of glimpse of this as a personal experience reading a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Voice of Knowledge. And he talks about the voice of knowledge as that voice in our heads that is continually judging and evaluating everything as good, bad, right, wrong, based on everything it knows. And it essentially narrates life. Now, when I was younger, when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, because my entire life was narrated. Sometimes third person, sometimes first person. But it was like, now I'm doing this, and now I should do this, and now he's doing that, and why is Michael doing this? And it was a continual background noise. But it didn't occur to me growing up that it was an unreliable narrator. It just seemed like my life was being narrated. And the way my life unfolded was the narrative, and I thought it was an objective narrative. I thought everything I thought was true because I thought it. But it became apparent to me that if it's an unreliable narrator, then it makes no sense to buy into it just because it's happening inside my head. And in fact, in the book, The Voice of Knowledge, Don Miguel Ruiz suggested that it's possible to live our lives without the narrator, without having to listen to that voice inside our head. And that seemed very hopeful to me. That really opened up possibilities to me that I had never seriously considered. And then I was teaching on a retreat with a colleague of mine named Dickon Bettinger, and he shared a story. And the story was of a time that he got very worked up about something and very upset about something. And in our work, we talk a lot about how we're living in the feeling of thought, not the feeling of circumstances. So we don't feel our situation, we don't feel our bank balance, we don't feel our job status. What we're feeling is thought in the moment. And all of us have certain experiences that we go, well, that's not just thought. That's something more than thought. That's outside of thought. That's beyond thought. And inevitably, at some point, we come to the understanding, oh, wow, that too is made of thought. And Dickon was talking about one of these experiences that he had and how he was really struggling, and it really did not look to him like thought, or he as he said, well, I could see that I'm thinking it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And another colleague of ours was talking to him and said, but Dickon, don't you see? Every thought is a lie. Now, Dickon said that when he heard that, the whole thing just melted. Somehow he saw the truth of that, and he saw beyond thought. He went back to that place in him before thought, and he was good as new. It had an equally profound yet different effect on me hearing him tell the story. because somehow it tied into the narrator, the unreliable narrator, the voice of knowledge, this thing inside our heads that seems like it's narrating, that it's just objectively reporting, but actually is spewing points of view and agendas the whole time. And I suddenly saw, well, if every thought is a lie, then I don't have to go through and evaluate them. I don't have to pick and choose. I don't have to go in and go, well, is that true? Is that true? Is that true? Which I had actually spent 1.5 years of my life doing Byron Katie's The Work, where you take particular thoughts and you ask yourself, is that true? Can you really know that that's true? And I suddenly saw, oh, I don't have to do any of that because every thought is a lie. And in the same way as Don Miguel Ruiz had pointed to the fact that you could live your life without the narrator, without attending to the narration, because it's an unreliable narrator, I saw in that moment, oh, I don't have to attend to these thoughts. I can actually navigate my life beautifully without them, without going through and judging and evaluating and figuring out that there is something in me that knows that I can follow. My inner GPS, my inner wisdom, my inner knowing. If every thought is a lie, then no thought's better than another thought. I don't have to go in and choose the positive ones and get rid of the negative ones or challenge the negative ones. They're all made up by their very nature, because thought is that which makes things up. Thought is that which makes things. Thought is the Play-Doh of the universe. So if every thought is a lie, I don't have to spend my days with my head underwater trying to pick through the fish. Because they're all fish. They're all made of the same stuff. Now, this does not mean I don't think, though it does mean I think less than I used to, because I'm not thinking about my thinking as much. But what it totally does, what it has totally done for me, is given me a shortcut back to myself, back to the space before thought, back to that within us, which knows. Because if it's an unreliable narrator, if every thought is a lie, then we don't have to think about our thinking. We can just be in the world, know what we know, and do what we do. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.